When I handed my mother the sonogram picture, expecting tears of joy, she burst into cold, cruel laughter. She tossed the photo onto the dining table like trash and said, "Your sister just closed on her second property today. That's real news. Your baby is just another problem we'll end up paying for." My father didn't even look up from his phone. He just smirked and added, "Great, now we have two burdens." I stood up, took a deep breath, and walked out without saying a single word. What my family didn't know was that I had been secretly managing my father's business accounts for 5 years, and the entire family estate was legally registered under my name. If you've ever been underestimated by the people who are supposed to love you, hit that like button, comment the city you're watching from, and stay tuned until the very end. My name is Clara, and at 28 years old, I had spent my entire life playing the invisible ghost in my own family. While my older sister, Vanessa, was treated like royalty for simply existing, I was the daughter expected to keep her head down, work in the shadows, and never ask for anything in return. For the past 5 years, I had been the silent engine behind my father's regional logistics firm. I handled the messy bookkeeping, managed demanding clients, and worked 12-hour days to keep the business afloat. Yet, whenever my father spoke about the company's success at family dinners, my name was never mentioned. Vanessa, who had never worked a hard day in her life, received lavish allowances and praise for her social climbing, while I was paid a meager salary and treated like an underpaid employee who owed them perpetual gratitude. I swallowed the disrespect for years, foolishly believing that if I worked hard enough, my parents would eventually see my worth. I convinced myself that loyalty to family meant enduring the quiet humiliation. But family dynamics like this don't change on their own. They only grow more entitled. Have you ever been the scapegoat child in a toxic family hierarchy, expected to carry the world on your shoulders while receiving zero credit? Let me know in the comments below, because what happened next finally shattered my blind loyalty forever. The dinner was supposed to be a celebration of new beginnings. Mark and I sat at the head of the heavy mahogany dining table, holding hands under the tablecloth, my heart hammering against my ribs. I had carefully hidden the ultrasound picture in my purse, waiting for the right moment between courses. Vanessa spent the first 40 minutes boasting about closing on her second investment property, a luxury condo downtown funded almost entirely by my father's generous cash gift. My mother beamed with pride, practically glowing as she toasted to Vanessa's brilliant financial mind. My father clinked his glass, calling her the shining future of our family. When the laughter finally settled, I took a soft breath and pulled the sonogram photo from my bag. "I have some big news too," I said, placing the image right in the center of the table. "Mark and I are having a baby." The silence that followed was suffocating. My mother's smile vanished instantly, replaced by a look of sheer irritation. She didn't offer a hug, a smile, or a single kind word. Instead, she let out a cold, sharp laugh, picking up the photo with 2 fingers as if it were a piece of trash. "Your sister just closed on her second property today. That's real news," she sneered, tossing the sonogram back onto the table. "Your baby is just another problem we'll end up paying for." My father didn't even bother looking up from his phone. He just let out a dismissive grunt and smirked. "Great. Now we have 2 burdens." Mark froze, his knuckles turning white, but I gripped his hand tightly. The brutal words hung in the air, revealing exactly how little I meant to them. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even give them the satisfaction of seeing my hands shake. I simply stood up, picked my sonogram photo off the table, and walked out of the dining room without saying a single word. Mark followed closely behind me, his face pale with fury, but I placed a gentle hand on his arm as we reached the car. "Don't," I told him quietly. "They aren't worth our energy anymore." As Mark drove us home in the quiet darkness, a sudden, surreal sense of clarity washed over me. For 28 years, I had been operating under the delusion that if I just worked harder, sacrificed more, and endured enough disrespect, my parents would finally love me. But sitting in that quiet car, feeling the tiny life growing inside me, the fog finally cleared. They would never change. And more importantly, I was done playing the victim. Instead of drowning in despair, my mind shifted into overdrive. I began mentally cataloging every document, every contract, and every financial file I had managed for my father over the last 5 years. My parents truly believed I was helpless, trapped, and completely dependent on them. They had forgotten who actually kept the lights on, who held the keys to the accounts, and who truly owned the foundation beneath their feet. A cold, calculated resolve took root in my chest. Tomorrow, I wasn't going to cry. Tomorrow, I was going to look at the paperwork. The next morning, while my parents were off celebrating Vanessa's latest victory, I unlocked my home office and pulled up the archived financial files from 7 years ago. My father had always been an arrogant businessman, but he was also reckless. Back when I was 21, his logistics company had faced a massive legal audit and impending bankruptcy from a messy lawsuit. In a desperate bid to shield his assets from potential creditors, he had quietly transferred the deeds of the family estate, the corporate headquarters, and several key equipment leases into my name. He had promised to transfer them back once the dust settled, but my father was short-sighted and lazy when it came to tedious administration. Because I was young, quiet, and completely submissive at the time, he simply forgot about the paperwork over the years, assuming I would never understand what I held. Sitting at my desk, I carefully reviewed the county land records and legal deeds with trembling hands. Every single document was legally binding, fully updated, and solely registered under my name. The family house my parents lived in, the building where my father operated his business, none of it actually belonged to him. He was operating on borrowed time, completely unaware that the daughter he had dismissed as a burden held the legal title to his entire life. My heart pounded with a mixture of disbelief and empowerment. They thought I was a helpless victim trapped under their thumb. In reality, I owned the very roof over their heads. Instead of throwing a noisy tantrum or confronting them prematurely, I made my moves in complete silence. The very next afternoon, I hired a sharp corporate real estate attorney who specialized in asset recovery. Sitting in his office, I laid out every deed, title, and tax record. His eyes widened as he reviewed the paperwork, confirming that every single asset was undeniably mine. Together, we executed a swift, multi-step strategy. First, I officially revoked my father's signing authority over the company's main operational accounts. Next, I instructed my attorney to draft formal notices to place the family home and the corporate office building on the commercial market. I wasn't just taking back my property, I was liquidating it. Every penny from the upcoming sales was directed straight into an irrevocable private trust created for my growing family. While my mother was out shopping for designer furniture and my father was boasts about his company's quarterly projections, the invisible foundation beneath them was completely dismantled. They had spent decades treating me like an expendable asset, confident that I would stay quiet forever. They had no idea that the countdown had already begun, and in less than 3 weeks, the quiet daughter they so deeply despised was going to hand them the bill for 28 years of disrespect. 3 weeks later, I called an urgent family meeting in the main boardroom of my father's corporate office. My parents and Vanessa strutted in looking thoroughly annoyed, expecting me to deliver a tearful apology or beg for a financial handout after weeks of cold silence. "I hope this is quick, Clara," my father barked, tossing his coat onto a chair. "I have important client calls, and your mother has a lunch reservation." "It won't take long at all," I replied calmly, sliding 3 thick manila envelopes across the polished table. My mother scoffed, opening her envelope first. Within seconds, the color drained entirely from her face. Inside were official 30-day eviction notices for the family estate, along with legal repossession orders for the corporate building and all commercial logistics equipment. "What kind of sick joke is this?" my father roared, slamming his fist on the table. "You can't evict us. I built this company. I bought that house." My attorney stepped out from the adjoining room, placing a stack of certified county land deeds in front of my father. "Actually, Mr. Vance," my lawyer stated plainly, "your daughter has held sole, legal ownership of these properties and business assets for 7 years. Effective immediately, her signing authority is the only valid one, and the properties are being sold." Panic instantly replaced my father's arrogance. Vanessa gasped, looking at our mother, who was now trembling with rage and disbelief. You can't do this to your own family, my mother choked out, her voice cracking. We raised you, and you called my unborn child a burden, I said, leaning in with absolute composure. You thought I was helpless. Now you have 30 days to find a new place to live. 2 months later, the dust finally settled. I successfully closed the sale on both the corporate building and the family estate, securing every dollar into a private trust that guarantees my child's future for a lifetime. With our financial independence fully secured, Mark and I moved to a quiet, sunlit home near the coast, far away from the toxic shadow of my past. My parents and Vanessa were forced to confront the harsh reality of their own actions. Unable to afford their lavish lifestyle without my silent labor and asset backing, my parents moved into a modest 2-bedroom rental, while Vanessa had to sell her condo to cover her mounting debts. For the first time in their lives, they had to take true accountability for themselves. Standing on my back porch, looking out over the ocean with Mark's arm around me, I finally felt at peace. I realized that setting boundaries isn't about revenge. It's about protecting your self-worth and building a safe space for the people who truly love you. If you were in my place, would you have given them a second chance? Or would you have walked away like I did? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to check out the next story on screen.